Blog Talk Radio.
Peace to everyone out there in Blog Talk Radio land. I hope you've had a productive week. We're here from Entheogenic with the Entheogenic Explorer program, and I'm your host, Baba Kilindi Iyi, and we're going to have a special show this evening, and we're going to be talking about Ming Zhu, the glowing crystals, the ones that people are talking about as the true infinity stones, and we have a special guest that's going to clue us in on some of the intricacies of the Ming Zhu, Peter Andreas. So we're looking forward to. We had a little bump in the road a couple of weeks ago, but we should be here and ready to roll shortly. Thank everyone for chiming in and being part of the show. That's what we do here. We are the ones who talk about and deal with psychedelics, entheogens, and the hallucinogens. So what does that have to do with the Ming Zhu crystals and things like that? Well, the Ming Zhu crystals are an accessible quantum mechanical device that pairs with entheogens very, very intimately, so they can be used during your trip. So while we're waiting for our guest to chime in and for us to be able to discuss and let you know more about these crystals, which we've talked about for since the program's been coming on since March. He's going to share with you some of the things that folks may not really know about, and give us some insight into what they do. So we're looking forward to him coming in a minute or two, and it's going to be a wonderful show. He's our first guest, and as I said, and been saying on the program, that we're going to start bringing in guests on the subjects of things dealing with entheogens and the history of them, and moving into our very near future, dealing with all of the different types of technologies and things that are part of the entheogenic world, because it's what's driving the artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and other things that we're right in the midst of here in the very first part of the 21st century, excuse me. So we need to be very, very clear on how these things can help us and what we're moving into. Things like the Internet of Things and dealing with cryptocurrencies rather than fiat currency and things like this. So we're in the midst of it, and we need tools. We need tools and weapons and armor to protect ourselves and put us on an equal footing and ahead of the game in this thing, when we're dealing with so much that's pertinent in our world as far as where we are. So the Ming Zhu is a great tool. We'll be talking about it pretty much through the whole show, and we're glad to have our special guests coming in and chiming in and talking about and giving a history of being able to share with us exactly what is going on with that. So, it's great info that will be shared this evening. Also, I have a lecture coming up tomorrow at 6 p.m. in the city of Detroit for those who are in the area on AI, Bitcoin, AI, and the 5G Internet of Things. And we'll be talking about artificial intelligence. We'll be talking about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. If you aren't in, why not? The 5G of things, where we have all of the different types of smart everythings, from pill bottles to smart juice boxes to smart refrigerators to smart shoes, and all of those different types of things where, you walk and your shoes tell you, of course, it's relating to your phone and telling you, how much you've done as far as movement throughout the day and things like this. And I believe this is our guest chiming in. Let me see. Are you there?
Kilindi.
How are you?
I'm here, brother. Good morning. Good. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good evening. We're not going to reveal where you are, but good morning. How's it going?
I'm in Taipei. I'm in Taipei, and the day is just beginning.
The day is just beginning. Well, that's good. Like to welcome you to the show.
Outside too. It's windy. It's rainy. It's cold. Oh man.
Well, you know where I am in Detroit here, so it's windy and nasty and cold. So
it's a lot like Detroit, except everybody's Chinese.
Yeah, you should probably be someplace like Bangkok or something like that.
Yeah,
but or somewhere tropical, somewhere warm.
Well, they say it'll be warm next week, but I don't know.
Yeah,
it's it's an island middle of the Pacific. We get typhoons and earthquakes and all sorts of good things.
Yes. Well, I'm glad you can make it to the show. You're our actual first guest on the show, so it's only fitting that you be the first guest. Peter and I have known each other for more than 40 years. And just to give you a little bit of background with me, he's the one who actually gave me my first entheogens of the mushroom exposure. I'd had some acid before then, but the mushrooms are really a lot different. But I always give him his props in dealing with that. Always give him his props on that, and those were some great times. And so here we are. Also, Peter is the person who introduced me to the Ming Zhu, and so I guess we can get right off into it. Maybe just give a little background about yourself, and just let the audience know what's going on.
Well, I first discovered Ming Zhu, and the term is a Chinese term for a family of minerals, crystals, and gems that are able to glow in the dark on their own volition once they've been energized, and they've been revered by Chinese emperors for millennia. And I was a golf professional. That's what brought me to Asia. And I was actually teaching golf in Guilin in southwestern China back in 2009, early 2009, to the director of a provincial mineral museum. And after our first lesson, we were in his study, and it was all these beautiful crystals and, rosewood furniture, Chinese scrolls on the wall, very beautiful, a lot of antiquities and fine things. And we're kind of in the dark because we've been in the sun for 2 hours getting baked on the driving range. Mm-hmm. And his assistant comes in, and she puts this round river stone about the size of a skipping stone on the tea table, and she pours hot water on it, and this thing lights up and is glowing in the dark turquoise, kind of turquoise blue-green. And I've never seen anybody pour water on a rock and have it glow in the dark. Am I tripping? What is that? And she had a master's in geology. And she explained to me as well as she could. She says it's called the Ming Zhu, and she says they also known as the Dragon's Pearl, and that it was owned by Chinese emperors, and it contains rare earth elements, which give it its glowing feature. And I was flabbergasted. I was just stunned. And so if you've ever been to China or Southeast Asia, the hygiene is not quite the same as it is especially this is kind of rural China. Guilin is southwestern China. It's not like, I guess Shanghai, Beijing is going to be probably quite a bit better. But I find myself, because I'm not from there, I'm always kind of fighting off the cooties, because, when you're eating the food there, they don't have whether it's the microbes or whatever. So I kind of had a little swelling under each, behind, the lymph nodes at the TMJ joint where the jaw meets the ear. Just a little puffiness, a little bit of discomfort. And I picked this stone and I just intuitively just placed it there. And it just sucked the pain away. The pain went away. The swelling went down. It was instant. And I put it on the other side. I said, whoa, that's interesting. She says, put it outside in the sunshine. So I put it on a white piece of paper, and I took it out on their little portico, and I stuck it in full bright sunlight for like 10 minutes. And I brought it inside, and it was brilliant white, the light. It was brilliant. And I spent the next 2.5 hours drinking tea and using this Ming Zhu as kind of like a healing stone. And I went down, I wiped all my meridians. I went down any part of my body that had any kind of stuck energy, any blocked energy, or any kind of congestion or anything. I used it almost like a vacuum cleaner. And it sucked away the cooties and filled it with the energy. And when I left there about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I felt like I was wearing electricity. I was just tingling with energetic aliveness. I was just in, put me in the zone. I'll never forget that day. And the place
Did it help your golf game?
This place where this happened was this was on the 20th of April, 2008. And so that night on the ride back to my house, I had a 90-minute bus ride from Guilin back to Yangshuo. So where I stay was where the Li River and the Yulong River meet. And it's the mountains kind of look like meatloaf. They're kind of like very, very, very interesting landforms. And the area is famous for its caves and its mineral wealth. Mm-hmm. And they say that area that's the legendary birthplace of the dragon. So they find a lot of Ming Zhu there. And that night I had dreams of going into these caves. I dreamed of Ming Zhu. That night never made sense, actually. But about 3 months later, I was able to acquire that Ming Zhu from them. I traded him quite a bit of money and free golf lessons. And the man who sent me to Asia was Tiger Woods' father, Earl, who was my mentor. And in Asia, your lineage, who your teacher is, carries a tremendous amount of weight.
Yes.
And because I was,
definitely.
on some extent, a lineage holder from this line, that was something that he found very valuable. So he was able to trade this Yemenju from their collection. And as soon as I got possession of it, it's like the universe flipped the switch and my life changed. The life I have now bears scant. It's like it's so different. I'm on another level. It put me to another level entirely. Changed my life completely. And I found that as soon as I got the treasure stone, the things that Chinese say in terms of the myths and legends about Yemenju, I found them to be true. It's my own experience. And about a month and a half after that, this was like July, some small 14 millimeter Yemenju pearls showed up, became available, and I got 3.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because, when you're not from China, when you're a foreigner, you're fair game. It's like, it's not personal, it's structural. They'll tell you anything. And there's nothing written about you. So when I went online that first night and tried to find something about Yemenju, and there was very little information about it. Most of it was like superstition, legends and superstition. And there was not much info at all in English. And so I just had to. So it piqued my interest. I wanted to find out, what's the real deal? Where is it? What is it really? Where is it from? What's the real history of it? What's the geology? What's the chemistry? How does it glow? And as soon as I got these 3 pearls, I had a street artist kind of did macrame, make me my first energy armor, and it was a bracelet on each wrist with the pearl. And a necklace, so I could either wear it dangling over my sternum, or I could cinch it and wear it over my third eye, like it, like it's like a halo,
like a band, like a band, like a headband,
And as soon as I put it on and walked downstairs, and where I stayed in Yangshuo, I stayed at the 6th floor. And there's no elevators, so going up to my room and coming back down, you get a workout, and the pitch of the stairs is kind of steep, so you really get an aerobic workout. So when I came downstairs, my first day wearing this energy armor, and I opened the door, looking out, it looked like I was underwater, and the air was sparkling. I could see all the bions, what Wilhelm Reich calls the bions, like sparkling light, looked like flies in the air. And that's how the world looks when I eat magic mushroom. When I'm dead magic mushrooms, in my youth, the first thing I would see was the energy dimension that you kind of swim in. You could see it.
Yes.
And the Yemenju put me into a Satori state. And I've been in the Satori state since July 2009. Pretty much. That's the base. That's the default. That's the square one now.
That's fascinating.
And
you've written a book also. You've written a book also, haven't you? The only one in English.
Let me just tell you how that came about. It's like I started wearing this energy armor 24/7. I'd wear it during the day. I'd sleep in it, and I got another couple of pearls, and I put one, right over my belt buckle, so I'd have my lower down chin would be armored, and I got 2 more small ones that I put on my shoes, so my feet were anchored, and I'm walking around and wearing energy. It felt like I'm wearing electricity. That's what it feels like when you have all your major chakras have Yemenju to enhance their field strength. And on December 1st, 2009, I played a round of golf in Chiang Mai, which is where my winter home is. And I had a bit of a headache. I was feeling a little bit off. So I put the Yemenju up over my third eye. I'd never played golf with my Yemenju on before, because over my third eye. And as soon as I put it over my third eye, it put me into a state they call open focus, where I had a broad panoramic view in crystal clear detail, rather than like looking through a sight of a telescope, where you get like a narrow field of vision with some sharp detail. The whole field, like panoramic 180, my peripheral vision, all the way from the front to my sides, huge field, crystal clear detail. And I stepped to the tee, and I saw this shot, and they call this entheogenic. It's like a synesthesia, where it's not just sight, it's feeling, it's all the senses are working together as one and enhanced. And so I saw this shot in crystal clear detail, and I could see the flight of the ball, and I could see the spot 300 yards away down the middle of the fairway with this little green patch where the ball lay before I hit it. And I stepped up to the tee, and I took the club back. And I mean, I've done this before. I've been playing golf in the zone since I was 14. But this was heightened. And that day, I saw every shot in crystal clear, lucid, like 4D, so super vivid detail, and hit it exactly as I saw it, from the first tee from the first shot to the last shot. I have never played better. I can't play any better. I shot 63, but I should have shot 53 because the greens were so bumpy. Because it was a local forest, the greens had been aerated. They'll take this machine and they'll try to dig holes in it to kind of perforate the soil to let to get the excess moisture out. And then they cover the greens with sand so it's not a smooth surface. But I've never hit the ball better. And the last shot I hit, I can't hit a golf ball better than that. And I was a tour player. I played the Entheogenic Tour. I played on the mini tours. I was a tournament player in the Aloha section in Hawaii, so I can play a little bit. I'm not great, but I was good. But this is something. This is something altogether. This is another. I've never played better, and I can't play better. When I finished that round of golf, after that last shot, I hit a 4-iron, 230 yards, to a tight, on a par 5, 18th hole, to a tight pin. It was like on a 2-tiered green. The pin was in the back, very, very small landing area. And this shot, it looked like a jet take, looked like an F-14 taking off. The feeling, impact was like lightning. I mean, I still feel it. It's the finest shot I've ever hit, ever. And it hit right in the face of right before the second tier, and then kind of tumbled over the edge and curled down next to the hole for like a kicking, like a foot away for a tapping eagle. And after that round, it laid behind the green, and my body I had so much chi. It was ecstasy. And I retired from golf that day. I quit at the top. And since that day, since December 1st, 2009, I put all my focus into figuring out what in the world is this. Because I was wearing my
you quit at
energy.
You say you quit at the top.
I quit at the top.
The greatest shot of your greatest shot.
I had Ming Zhu on each wrist, on the back of each wrist, and I had one over my third eye. And it was like I was beyond the zone. I played in the zone before. This was beyond the zone. I was in it. Because the interesting thing about it is my mind was so still. It was no thought. It's like observing the observer. It was higher than the zone. It was beyond something else. And so my research since that time has been to figure out what was that, and what's Ming Zhu to be able to facilitate that. And that's how the book came about. That's what inspired the book. The book came out of that experience.
Okay.
That's the motivation for it.
Yes, I remember. Yeah, I remember. I mean, I've read the book. It's fascinating, and it gives a lot of questions to me dealing with martial arts and things like that. Because I remember the old kung fu movies. I think some of the old movies, they would have a disc band over the third eye when they were doing martial arts. And I know, well, of course, they weren't real was in the Kung Fu movie, but I was just thinking that may have been in the actual from the legend, the Ming Zhu. And I also remember when I was watching the movie, The Last Emperor of China, the Dowager Empress, when she died and he was to become the emperor, they took a small round Ming Zhu and put it in her mouth. You know, I remember that from the movie. You know, I said, well, that's what they put in her mouth when the Last Emperor, Last Emperor of China, that movie, you know, because it was a great movie. But I remember that vividly. And was that one of the things that they would do also?
Well, that particular, her name is Sushi. And I used to pronounce it sushi, like like sushi food. When you do that Chinese will roll on it, that's hilarious. That's because it's a tonal language, so we see it one way, and it's like, if you don't get the tones right, it means something else completely different. But Cixi was the Dowager Empress, and she was a Qing dynasty empress. She's Manchu.
Yes.
And I've come to learn that those Ming Zhu, in 1948, those are imperial Ming Zhu, were actually taken from China as part, when Chiang Kai-shek fled China in 1948, they took the finest of the finest imperial treasures, not just gold, not just silver, not just the imperial jade, not just the fine porcelains and the fine bronzes and all the other imperial treasure from the household. Yeah. They also took the most valuable things for the Ming Zhu. And I was very lucky to meet in 2010. I met a Taoist master. He's a Taoist priest here in Taiwan named Master Yang, and he was a very renowned Ming Zhu dealer, and he had a Taoist tea circle Monday through Friday, 2 to 6 at his showroom. And I met him at the weekend jade market in Taipei, and when we met, we recognized each other. You ever have that where you meet somebody you've never met before, but you just like, as soon as you see them, you say, "Oh, it's you," right?
Yes, definitely.
He'd been seeing me in his meditation for 2 years before I showed up. So when we met, we clicked. We were like brothers from the jump street. But he spoke very little English. I spoke very little Chinese. But we could communicate. Nonetheless, we could communicate. And he invited me to this Taoist tea circle, and it was between 6 and 8 regulars that would come to the tea circle. All of them were Taoists, Chinese, in Taiwan, and they're all Ming Zhu collectors and connoisseurs. And every day they would bring different. It was like show and tell. And so I was able to meet a lot of the people that that have Ming Zhu, that love Ming Zhu, and learn a lot of the stories, the culture, and the things associated with the art. The spiritual practices, the meditative practices associated with Ming Zhu, as well as all the different varieties of Ming Zhu. But it's interesting. I first was introduced to Ming Zhu over tea. So there's some connection between tea, the tea culture, the art of tea, and Ming Zhu. They're like qigong and tea are like the best of friends.
Yes,
but,
yes, I know from the Kung Fu guys that.
One of the men at this tea circle, one of the group, I didn't realize it at the time, was a member of the last royal family of China. And he, liking to, he took a shine to me, but he had me vetted first. he'd had a background check run on me before he revealed himself. And he came to the tea circle one day, and he had this small little bag. It's actually from Tiffany's, and inside is a Tiffany box. And he has this sheath of it's like a roll of when you send papers through the mail, something you don't want to damage. It's like a cylinder. It'll have stoppers on both ends.
Yeah. So yeah.
If you can put like a poster tube, a small poster tube, and he opens this thing up, and it's 22 pages of provenance. And he opens this box up, and he's got this small Ming Zhu about this size, a little bit bigger than a golf ball, smaller than a billiard ball, bigger than a golf ball, about 1.5 inches in diameter.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the twin of the Ming Zhu that they showed in the last emperor of China that they put in her mouth.
Yes.
This was the twin. Every emperor from the Ming dynasty to the end of the Qing dynasty, that's 24 emperors, had a matched pair of Ming Zhu. Every emperor. That means there's 24 emperors, each have 48 imperials. So this is one of those 48. That
was like a national treasure.
It's more than that.
Yeah, beyond the national treasure.
It's true antiquity, and it's an imperial treasure. It's an imperial treasure stone. And as soon as he hands this Ming Zhu to me, and I hold it in my hand, do you remember in the first Star Trek movie when 3CPO makes it over to like Obi-Wan Kenobi and they tap him, and all of a sudden this hologram appears, and it's like Princess Leia. Obi-Wan, come help us,
Yes.
I hold the Ming Zhu, and it was like a hard drive. I didn't realize it was like a DVD player. But when I held the Ming Zhu, all of a sudden I'm someplace else. All of a sudden I'm in the Forbidden City, and there's people moving around me in period dress. So I'm back in the Ming Dynasty. This is the Ming Dynasty Ming Zhu, because it recorded everything that its owner had experienced it while it was holding it. And so when I held the Ming Zhu, I was able to access its akashic memory, but it's playing it back as a visual memory file. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Yes, I know exactly what you're saying.
This is a very illustrious, this is a very intelligent, this is a very high, in terms of the Ming Zhu pantheon, this is one of the imperials. There's only 48. And this particular one was one of the best, was the cream of the crop, the top of it had more memory than the others because of its particular history. So I'm holding this Ming Zhu, and I'm still aware that because I'm at the Dallas Tea Circle. There's people, they're drinking tea, and I'm still faintly aware of them in the background. But my main awareness, what's more vivid to me, is where I'm being reliving or being shown. And as I tune into the frequency, as I tune into this Ming Zhu, it takes me then back to Orion. I'm out in the star field, which is where Earths come from. So it's communicating. It's revealing itself to me. It's just meeting me. It never met me before. And so I went from the Forbidden City to out into the cosmos, where I'm looking at Orion from out in space. And then it took me into its Akashic memory. And the way I can describe it, you've seen The Matrix when Neo was looking down, towards into the Matrix, and you can see their digits, the numbers that are railing down like
the coding, the codes, yeah.
The coding is going down. So I'm in the Akashic memory, and there's 8 avenues. There are 8 lanes and all the coding that's coming down to Chinese characters, and they are gold. The field is kind of green, but they're gold on it, and they just cascading down like a waterfall. Simultaneous, I'm seeing these 8 pathways, and then it introduces me. There's a family. This is one Yi Ming Zhu. They're all connected like a computer. This is just one terminal. There's a collective memory of everything they've experienced. They're conveying. So I saw the big picture, the gestalt, and all of a sudden then I'm back, and all of a sudden I'm back. I'm looking around like I've been gone for like 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And
you're in the network.
It was like he didn't say anything to me. He just handed me the Yi Ming Zhu. He showed me the provenance and handed me the Yi Ming Zhu, and then boom, I had this experience. And so I'm the first Westerner to be able to, the first non-Chinese to be able to touch one of these.
That's fascinating. But I found the same type of information. That's great.
That was an eye-opening. That was an eye-opening experience. So that was from this ancient imperial. They had all these memories, and that was on the 20th of June, 2010, and I think the solstice was the next day. And so that gave me the next bit of information, because after that meeting, after I handed the Yi Ming Zhu back to him, this royal, who now has kind of taken me under his wing, is explaining to me about the miracle of activation, because this Yi Ming Zhu is activated. So it has all these capabilities. You can use it to like traverse, to travel.
Yes.
That's because the Yi Ming Zhu has been cultivated for centuries, right? This is, the emperors have been. Emperors were holding this, and they would hold the Yi Ming Zhu like, during it all day long. They have it during affairs of state, when they're sleeping. They had the Yi Ming Zhu. They were constantly holding they had 2 Yi Ming Zhu, like a Baoding balls, like the ones you see in the Chinatown. You can roll them in your hand. Baoding. So this is a Baoding ball, and so each had a pair, and they had their Yi Ming Zhu with them pretty much 24/7. They'd sleep with them, and so there was so much content, there's so much information, there's so much chi in this one particular Yi Ming Zhu. It had activated a long time ago. And he explained to me about the miracle of activation, because that's where my focus is now, is really getting to understand that really is the name of the game. That Yi Ming Zhu is an energy gem. It's, according to Dr. Patrick Flanagan, who's one of the most renowned scientists of this era.
Yeah.
Many people think he's the reincarnation of Nikola Tesla.
A neurophone and the other thing, pyramid power.
I gave him some Yi Ming Zhu spheres to research, and the first thing he says, he's holding in his hand, he's looking at me, he says, "Oh, I know what this is." He says, "This is a hyperdimensional dielectric field capacitor." Because he's a physicist, he's looking at it like that's what it is. I said, "What?" He says, it's a crystal Tesla coil. It's a scalar crystal. And so that, as I research this, that's where my focus now is understanding what scalar energy is, how scalar waves work, the capabilities of scalar, and it goes a long way to explain the proper use of Yi Ming Zhu, the miracle of Yi Ming Zhu, and where beyond the zone is. Is that too much? Too soon?
No. That's great,
All right.
because a lot of the things you're talking about, I'm right with. I call them they're true quantum computers, because like when you said it took you to the place, you downloaded the information, or you phased with the information of the Yi Ming Zhu's memory banks. So to be able to record and then to be able to release that information back, that's just basically what a computer is. Now, they're on a completely different level as far as the whole thing of the quantum computers. What they're trying to actually do with the quantum computers like D-Wave and others are what at room temperature the Yi Ming Zhu do already. See, they have quantum computers, but they have to, freeze that chip down to almost absolute zero, or it would explode because of the heat, because they have heat problems. But the natural energy of the Yi Ming Zhu is already in the quantum field, and it can record down into the infraparticle range, which is the very, very small. And if you look at not and much past the nanometer scale, if you look at the nanometer scale, an ant is like 5 million nanometers. The head of a pin is like 1.5 million nanometers. And if you deal with the nanotech, which we have in our phones and things like that, a nanometer is 10 to the negative 9, and a picometer is 10 to the negative 12. A femtometer is 10 to the negative 15. An attometer is 10 to the negative 18. A zeptometer is 10 to the negative 21. And yoctometer is 10 to the negative 24. And Planck length is 10 to the negative 35. And I'm pretty sure that the Yi Ming Zhu are working at the attometer range, which is 10 to the negative 18. That's small. That's beyond the quantum almost, So it has the ability to, in just part of its memory field, take, say the head of a pin, that much information inside of a Yi Ming Zhu there's more information in that head of a pin on a piece of Yi Ming Zhu than all the atoms that exist in the universe. So these things are actually transdimensional, and they breach the
definitely no
the
doubt
information.
About it. No doubt about that.
Yeah.
No doubt about that. For sure. For sure.
Yeah. So that's what I'm dealing with. I look at it. You were saying about in Star Wars where the kind of like hologram came out, but see, it's a all-inclusive experience inside of it. It's not just a hologram comes up, but you're embedded in the energy field, so it brings where it has collected information to the actual field that you're existing in at that moment, when you were in the Imperial City and people walking by and things like that. You were actually there, and that's what I'm trying to deal with, because like I said, I've been taking it into trips, which is and it's moving right there with me. So now I don't even actually have to take it. It's part of my weaponry, kind of like in the whole thing of when you're talking about say Krishna, when he was giving information to Arjuna about his higher self and what he actually was, not the human portion of it, which he was talking to, not the human being. When he gave him the soma, which was the mushroom drink, he said, what's going on here? What is this? What's really happening? And he said, hey, do you really want to know what's going on? And he said, yeah, I want to know what's going on. So he revealed to him his transdimensional forms. in all their mystery. So it had divine weapons, and because most people don't know that the weapons of Krishna were the mace, the conch shell, the lotus flower, and the Sundansara chakra, which were his main weapons. And so the energy field that he invoked in all of those different faces and all of those different things that he was revealing, he had all different type of energy fields and things like that. And I'm sure he had had the imperial transdimensional Yi Ming Zhu along with him. So that's what I'm dealing with.
That's the jewel in the lotus. They call that Om Mani Padme Om. That Mani is the Yi Ming Zhu. Om Mani Padme Om. That Mani, that's the jewel in the lotus. That's the Yi Ming Zhu.
Definitely.
There's quite a large Tibetan community, Tibetan Buddhist community here in Taiwan, and I've been able to spend some time with the head Rinpoche here.
Yes.
Because they venerate Padmasambhava, who is a celestial who figures prominently in their history.
Yes.
He's actually appeared, back in the 8th century, and his legendary feats and accomplishments are well documented. But he had 3 Yi Ming Zhu in his crown. So the Tibetans are quite familiar with the Yi Ming Zhu, which they call Nishin Norbu. And when I showed him my Yi Ming Zhu, he kind of chuckled, because they're focused on the Yi Ming Zhu inside of them, inside of their consciousness, rather than the Yi Ming Zhu you can hold in your hand.
Well, I think that the one that you can hold in your hand is just the coming back of the reflection of what's already there. That's why I was saying, when you get a Yi Ming Zhu, you're not getting something that is foreign to you or doesn't, or isn't a part of your reality. It's your Yi Ming Zhu. It's just an external form, since we live in this 3-dimensional 5-sense reality. It's an external form of what you've already had. And I say this to people who get the Yi Ming Zhu, that this is your Yi Ming Zhu. You've always had it. It's just here showing itself for you in this dimension as something external, when it's really something that you've always had, and you've never been without it.
Now that's deep. That's well said. That's deep. That's well said.
Because I know that the ones I've always had. I'm in the hyperdimensional zones, and all I have to do is think of it, and it's there, within my field, just like the weapons and things like that I have. They're not always visible, but all I have to do is be in a situation where it's needed. It's kind of like the light of Elendil, which in the Lord of the Rings, Frodo was gifted by the elves. It said it's a light where all others fail. You have this light. So when I was in dealing with the jinn, and I was trapped in a puzzle, and I went below the Planck length. Planck length, as I said before, is 10 to the negative 35, and at 10 to the negative 35, there is no light. It's triple thick darkness, and the reason why is it's under the photon. It's smaller than the photon. The photon is orders of magnitude above that, so there's no photon to be able to be light in that place. And the only light that I have to be able to see and to navigate in that triple thick darkness was the Yi Ming Zhu that lit up in my field and gave me a way of navigating in a place where the physicists say that this is the they say this is the end of the line, but of course it's the end of the line for their calculations and their mathematics. It's not the end of the line. It's actually the beginning. But there's no light. There's no physical light down there. And the only thing that you had that lit this place up was the Ming Zhu, and they and those that exist in that place, because it's a greater density because of the closeness of the particles at that spot. They're so close together because we know that atoms and things like that are basically empty space. There's space between them. But these particles at that level of existence are so close together that the speeds that we're talking about, the density of information is so vast that is you can't even imagine it. You have to be there. That's why I say that the servers that generate the reality of the macroverse exist in the infraparticle realms, which is below the 10 to the negative 35. And I know that I've been there. And the only light that I had in that place, because you have to bring your vision with you, have to bring your vision with you. And the Ming Zhu was my vision down there when I got stuck in the basement. Because I call it the basement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, that's
definitely
very interesting.
Definitely. Yeah, you there?
Are we still connected?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we're still.
I said that's very interesting. There's a deity that's highly venerated in Taiwan. Did you hear that? Are we still connected?
We're still connected, but I think they maybe want some rental technology here. Because we're going in.
Okay. All right.
But let's continue.
That's very interesting. I hear you. I understand.
Yes.
There's a deity, a bodhisattva, who is the god of Ming Zhu, named Ti Sang Pusa. And he holds in his hand a glowing Ming Zhu, by which he illuminates the underworld. And his vow is like his job is to help lost souls find the light. And he's always depicted holding a glowing Ming Zhu.
Well, that's what it is. The light where all others fail.
The goddess Kuan Yin Pusa, who is also a bodhisattva, also an enlightened celestial being, holds in her hand a glowing Ming Zhu. You find many deities, many what they call Xian or immortals, are depicted holding Ming Zhus. They're very, very fond of Ming Zhu. And when I got my first Ming Zhu, I started having visitations, because the Ming Zhu functions as a kind of a transponder or a beacon. So the higher dimensional beings, it's got to be a very, very bright.
Oh yeah.
And I've over the last it's almost 10 years now, 9 years, I have met quite a few Xian. And it's interesting that the original name for Taiwan, which is my home base now, is where my business is based and where my research is focused, because there's so many Ming Zhu here and so many people who love them and collect them and cultivate them. But the original name for Taiwan is Penglai Xiandao. And there's two, according to Taoists, there's two places on Earth where the heavenly realm and the terrestrial realm intersect.
Yes.
That's Mount Kunlun, Kunlun, and that's in Tibet, near Tibet, and Mount Penglai, which is Taiwan. And so it means Island of the Immortals, Penglai Xiandao. And this really is the Island of the Immortals. The people here venerate these Taoist deities. They pray to them. They make offerings to them. They have altars to them in their homes and their businesses. It's ubiquitous. And because they're giving so much energy and acknowledgement to these beings that exist in a higher vibratory realm,
yes,
they provide the fuel or the juice required to make the connection between that realm and this realm. And there's so many. I'd heard about this before I came here, but I've experienced it since I've been here. There's so many accounts of people who are very, very devout and very, very sincere in their internal practices and their meditation and their prayers, that they have if you become part of the Taiwanese community, you'll start to hear these stories more and more, where people will actually have interface and interaction with these deities, where they'll physically manifest and hang out with you. But they're able to bestow tremendous blessings. I come from a family of medical doctors and research scientists and scholars. My mom's a doctor, my dad's a doctor, my older brother was a doctor. I studied pre-med at Stanford. I'm pragmatic. I'm very skeptical. I want you to prove it to me. I want to be seen. I want you to show me. Then if you show me how it works and I can work it, then I'll go. I'm not just going to believe something because somebody says so. And I've had the experience since I've been here. And it's pretty much something I'd want to have everybody have a chance to experience. That the Ming Zhu truly attract multitudes of blessings. And whenever I hand a Ming Zhu to someone, I always say healthy, wealthy, happy, lucky. Because they not only will increase your vitality and your energetic state of strength and grounding, they have an ability to help you increase your manifestation abilities, and then they will attract these heavenly beings. And it doesn't matter if you are Chinese or not, if you're Western or not, because these deities, they're kind of transcend culture. They transcend race. I think they clothe themselves according to your frame of reference. But whoever they are and however they really exist is in a higher order, on a higher realm. It transcends.
Oh yeah, definitely it transcends the usual suspect plenum of information that we have in this realm. You know, the mystery is just that it's still a mystery. Yeah.
Because Ming Zhu were found everywhere. Everywhere on Earth, they find Ming Zhu. They find Ming Zhu I have Ming Zhu from America, from Colorado. They find Ming Zhu in some of the greatest mineral discoveries. There was one in Derby in the 1870s. A fluorite mine was discovered. It had this very beautiful purple fluorites that, when exposed to light, they would glow brilliantly for 72 hours. The people didn't realize it. That's the Ming Zhu. See, but Chinese have recognizing that there's something, there's a sentience there, there's a consciousness there, and revering them and interacting with them for millennia, where other people would find it and say, "Oh, this is interesting. Oh, it glows in the dark," and just move on. You know, there's a television program I would want the listeners to take a look at. You can check it out on YouTube. It's a television show produced by the Weather Channel called Prospectors.
Prospectors.
First season, second episode. Near the 30-minute mark in this episode, there's a guy named Rich Frederick, who is he's kind of like he's really got a knack for finding crystals. And his favorite haunt for hunting crystals is near Lake George, which is very famous for its aquamarines, topaz, and other gemstones. There's a quartz-bearing vein called a pegmatite that reaches up through the surface around this area about 150 miles west of Denver, Lake George. And they find amazonite and smoky quartz and a lot of other things, but it's just mineral rich.
Yes.
And he's digging he's digging in a hollow beneath a tree that got struck by lightning. And he's in the hole, and he got the camera in there, and he's got his dog. He's kind of like what we'd call like a hillbilly, but I don't mean to, I'm not trying to just to disparage him, because I have the greatest respect for this guy. But he's kind of just like a country boy, and he's digging in the ground underneath. He's got this sixth sense for finding crystals, and he's digging with what looks like a chopstick. It's bamboo, because you don't want to use something that's going to be harder than what you're looking for, so you're going to damage a crystal. So he's digging in this pocket in this earth, slowly underground, and he finds this pocket of fluorite. And he pulls one of the fluorites out, and he kind of uses his pant leg, and he just to get the mud off, he can see that it's got this beautiful kind of like violet, cerulean blue color, really beautiful crystal. And so they show him finding this pocket of fluorites in the field. And then at the end of the show, they show them once they've been cleaned up. And they have this man come in at the end of the show, and he's got this, he's kind of like he's the expert on appraising minerals and identifying what they are and what their value would be in the marketplace. And so Rich shows him these pocket of fluorites that he's found. This is Prospectors, first season, second episode, right at the end. And he shows us one which he thinks is the pick of the litter. It's the best. He says every pocket's going to have one prize, and this is what he thinks the prize. And it looked like a deck of cards stacked on top of each other. It's kind of offset, like on a diagonal. So it's like two-tiered, like a step. And it's this beautiful violet, purple, bluish, almost translucent, almost transparent fluorite crystal. Beautiful.
Yes.
And he says, Rich, this is a great one. I think this is worth about $5,000. And these guys, because he found it for free, so he's happy. $5,000, that's a lot for a crystal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he says, well, this other one, and it's kind of unusual, something unusual about it. And so he flicks off the light, and here it is. It's about the size of a baseball. It's got this beautiful cobalt blue light, brilliant light glowing in the dark. A Ming Zhu. But the guy doesn't recognize what it is, so he turns the light back on. He takes a look at it. He says, "Oh, Rich, this is a polymorph." So it's a green fluorite and a purple fluorite of two different crystal forms growing together. So you got a green and a purple fluorite growing together to form a single mass, two different crystal structures, a polymorph. It glows in the dark brilliantly for 8 hours with a blue light. Mm. And so he says, well, this is a polymorph, and he's got this luminescent quality to it. But that wasn't the important thing to him, that it was a polymorph that was important. He says, this is about $5,000 as well. And I took a look at that and my jaw dropped. Because what he was holding in his hand was a priceless, authentic Ming Zhu. Probably worth $10 million. And so as soon as I saw that, I went online to try to find this guy, see if I can acquire this from him, since he didn't know what it was. And he sold it a few weeks earlier at the Denver Gem Show for $5,000. So whoever got that, score, that's a find of a lifetime. Now that's a national treasure. So the
but it's possible that they don't know what it. They don't know what it is.
They didn't know. He didn't know what it was. So see, the Chinese know what they are, and the West they don't know what they are, and so that's how I've kind of built a business, because I know what they are. So I'm able to find them. It's like, if you don't know what it is, and I do, then that's I win. It's like that's how it works. And so if you don't know, but nobody knows. Only the Chinese know, and Chinese keep things secret. They had acupuncture since 2,500 years BC, whatever, the Yellow Emperor, and we just found out about acupuncture in the 1960s, right? They had Qigong for since forever, and we're just finding out about Qigong. They had Ming Zhu since the Shang Emperor, since the first dynasty, but we're just now finding about Ming Zhu in 2010.
Yeah. So one question I wanted to ask you. Now, I had a guy that wanted to purchase a Ming Zhu, and he said, "Well, tell me a little about it and do a little research." And so I told him about it and said, "Do a little research." And when I came back to deal with the purchase, he said, "Well, I don't think so," and things like that. But I found out that he went on the internet and he bought one for like $40. Of course, it wasn't authentic, but he was satisfied. So there are people out here that have fake Ming Zhus that aren't really authentic. And
of course, yeah. The marketplace is flooded with fakes. And the trouble with the fakes is they don't have a coherent crystal structure. So you can't. So they won't activate. They'll glow.
And they won't. Yeah, don't have the information.
Yeah, they don't exactly. They don't. You don't. All they do is glow. You can't interact with them energetically. They're not going to bring you any of the blessings, any of the trans-dimensional, hyperdimensional capability is absent because there's no coherent crystal structure. All they are is an aggregate of chemicals that have been hardened. And some of them can be quite toxic. And one of the easy ways of finding out if something is real or fake is to muscle test it. Because authentic Ming Zhu will make you so strong, it'll increase your strength it's like night and day. It definitely will increase your strength in your coherence. And so when I muscle test people, when I find people that have fake Ming Zhu, I'll have them take the Ming Zhu off and I'll muscle test them. I'll have them put their arm out and I'll try to push down and have them resist. And then I'll have them hold their Ming Zhu with one hand next to their solar plexus. And all of a sudden I'll push again, their arm will drop. They'll lose all their strength. Then I'll hand them an authentic Ming Zhu that has a crystal structure, a coherent crystal structure, and I can hang on their arm and they can't get it to drop. It's not even. It's so dramatic, and what's even more important is I was talking about this phenomena of activation. Is that Ming Zhu, once you start to meditate with it and wear it and interact with it and to fill it with your consciousness, and to boil your consciousness down into the center of the crystal. Once it is sufficiently infused, they will physically transform. On the process towards activation, the Ming Zhu will gradually glow brighter longer, and the glow color will start to change. We will start to see different the overtones when it's an afterglow. You'll start to notice different colors will start to appear. It's not many people have experienced this.
Yeah, that's the information releasing.
At some point, when you get when your consciousness and the consciousness of the Ming Zhu, which is a 0 point in you, and the 0 point and the Ming Zhu get in sync, the Ming Zhu will awaken. It's like when a human being awakens, they get like the nimbus, like the Buddha and the saints. Yeah. They have the halo around their head. The Ming Zhu will awaken. It'll enlighten. It will open up. And it will, for a time, become transparent. An opaque Ming Zhu becomes transparent, and then it will exude a golden plasma. This golden light will come out of the Ming Zhu. And I told you when I first experienced this imperial back in June 20th, 2010, after I handed the Ming Zhu back to its owner, he told me about this process of activation. And when you meditate with the Ming Zhu for 45 minutes to an hour, when you open your eyes, you'll see your body covered with this golden plasma. The Ming Zhu will have a golden plasma around it, and the golden plasma will be covering your entire body. He says that's your energy body, and that's where you direct the healing power of Ming Zhu from, because he uses Ming Zhu to heal. Yes,
that's one thing that we definitely have to talk about and deal with.
Fake Ming Zhu do not have a coherent crystal structure. They can't activate, so there's no golden plasma. That's the name of the game, is the activation. You want the gold. This golden plasma is the elixir of life. This golden plasma, they call it in Chinese, what is the name for it? Is Jin.
Did you see? Well, while you're thinking, did you see the Avengers: Age of Ultron?
No, I didn't see
the movie. Oh, okay. Well, if you can get it on Netflix or something like that on your phone or computer, take a look at that. There's a point in there where they're looking at Jarvis, which is Iron Man's artificial intelligence that runs his armor and all that kind of stuff, and then there was Ultron.
Okay.
And they had them side by side, showing their informational structure as far as what would be called the transdimensional neural links. So if you get a chance to see the Age of Ultron, and what happened is that the Infinity Stone, and I believe it's the Mind Stone, was one, and it was, I believe it's either purple, I think it's purple or gold, was utilized for the vision, and the vision carries, it organized a humanoid structure for this being to be part of, and he's called a vision, and the vision carries his Infinity Stone right in his forehead. I think that'd be good to see, just to kind of look at and see some of the things that we're already talking about in part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because they're going in on February the Black Panther with the vibranium, which is the really Sagala, which is the metal of the Dogon, the super metal from Sirius, which they're talking about as far as Wakanda is concerned, and then the Infinity Wars, which are the wars for the different Infinity Stones, which Doctor Strange has one, the Collector has two, one is in the forehead of Vision, and these 6 stones that are actually 6 singularities from before the universe that Thanos is trying to get to put in his Infinity Gauntlet, which is the glove that holds these 6 different Infinity Stones, and they're each a different color, and each have different information. One is the Time Stone that deals with time. That's in the Eye of Agamotto, which is the talisman that Doctor Strange carries. That is the eye. There's the Time Stone behind that, which he uses to manipulate time. Then there's the Mind Stone. Then there's the they're different, exactly Ming Zhu's. So if you get a chance, look at the Avengers: Age of Ultron, and I think you'll get a lot of mileage out of of what they're doing.
Thank you.
So
I will.
Yeah. So the Ming Zhu are really something when you really get to work with them. Not just take them and sit them in the drawer somewhere.
They come in different glow colors as well. My first Ming Zhu was green.
Yes.
And when after my experience on the golf course in December 1st, 2009, I had a green Ming Zhu. And I had heard that the Ming Zhu also came blue and purple. And I set out. I call it following the Dragon's Trail. And I spent from 2009 to 2012 crisscrossing China. I spent a lot of time in the southwest and in the northwest. I was living in Dali and Lijiang in the search of the blue and the purple. And I was actually able to finally find. I remember when I found my first purple, I just couldn't believe it that it actually existed. Once I acquired my blue and purple, and all the others I'd found along the way, I took them to Beijing to show to a professor emeritus at Beijing University who wrote the first book on Ming Zhu, but in Chinese. Professor Luan Bing Ao, who then was in his 80s. He was a PhD in, Professor Emeritus, PhD in history and archaeology. But he had gone back into the historical record and documented all the references of the Ming Zhu from the Shang Dynasty all the way to the end of the Qing. And he introduced me to some people who were able to test my Ming Zhu. And I was shocked to discover that only 2 of the pieces I had were mineral. And that much of what I had was synthetic.
Mm-hmm.
And during that first trip, he introduced me to 3 gentlemen who are known as the fathers of Ming Zhu. One is a professor of a PhD in particle physics, who I call the poet. The second is a gentleman I refer to as the healer, who's a PhD in crystallography and material science. And the third is a PhD in chemistry, who I call the alchemist, who actually figured out how to make Ming Zhu. So many of the Ming Zhu that I had, this man had actually made. And this is some very sophisticated alchemy, because they were able to, through the physicist he figured out the physics of how Ming Zhu glowing feature, the forbidden zone. The professor of crystallography figured out the crystal structure, and the chemist figured out the component constituents and how to grow it. And they actually grew the crystal that had the same energetic capability as the ancient imperial that I'd held in Taiwan, but they were twice as hard and affordable. And so what they call is a modern Ming Zhu. There's ancient Ming Zhu, which There's very, very few, and you have to be basically a royal or a tycoon in order to have one. The normal person is never going to see one. They're not in any museums. The ones that exist are very closely held by very wealthy elites. It's a family treasure because it's so valuable. It brings so much blessing to the family. You would never know they had it.
Yeah.
And then you have the modern Yiming-Ju, which has the crystal structure, coherent crystal structure, and then you have the fakes. So the modern Yiming-Ju comes in, the basic colors are the purple, the blue, and the green, which are like you said, Mind Stone, the Time Stone.
Yes.
And then they are able to make it in gold and orange and red. So the same colors as the Infinity Stones in the Marvel Universe are actually physically exist as modern Yiming-Ju. But there's only one man who figured out how to make it. He's got the patent. He patented it in 1998, 1999. He has the patent in the U.S. and internationally. He figured out how to do it. It's very difficult to do. But it's done. And they activate.
Yeah. Well, I definitely like to at least at one point in time see one of the Imperial ones, but I know they keep them close at hand. You know, does anyone know what happened to the ones back in the time when they sacked the Forbidden City? What happened to those? Are they just in collections somewhere around the world and extremely wealthy people's houses and collections and things like that, or?
The 48 Ming and Qing dynasty Imperials were hand carried to Taiwan in 1948 by General Chiang Kai-shek, by his entourage.
Yes.
And those 48 are registered in they're inventoried and recorded in the Republic of China asset. So they're considered in Taiwan an asset of the Republic of China. And those Yiming-Ju were given to the heads of the royal families or the elite that came from China with Chiang Kai-shek. So in 1948, they were brought from China to Taiwan. The Yiming-Ju that belonged to the Dowager Empress, she had 9 Yiming-Ju. Cixi, she had a phoenix crown. She had 9 Yiming-Ju in her crown. So when she walked around the palace, she had Yiming-Ju on top of her head glowing, small Yiming-Ju. And when her tomb was looted in 1928, she was laying on a bed of shards. They call it peacock jade. So when they find the deposit of Yiming-Ju, some of it they'll form into spheres, but then the bits and pieces left over, the shards, the remnants,
yes,
they'll still glow. She was laying on a bed of the Yiming-Ju, according to the historical record, and those are out of sight. But those are from what my research has shown, those are still in China. When in the last few years, the Yiming-Ju that was in the crown of Genghis Khan, when he unified the 9 kingdoms into one back in the 12th century, he had a Yiming-Ju called the 9 Dragon Pearl that was golden. It was a yellow Yiming-Ju that glowed gold. That appeared in the 1980s and that appeared briefly in Beijing, and it was exhibited, and then it was sold at auction. And some of the and 4 of the pearls that belong to Cixi, which the last emperor of China was named Puyi.
Yes.
He wrote in his autobiography, he mentioned her 9 dragon pearls in her crown. And 4 of those appeared in 1990 and were given to the Chinese government. But rather than go into a museum, of course, they're too valuable, so they go into the homes of the shot callers, because the Yiming Zhu were known to bring great wealth and great blessing. So those are something that someone would want to keep to bless their family rather than to put it in a museum where it might get stolen or people wouldn't appreciate it. So there's no Yiming Zhu there's no of the historic pieces. There's no Yiming Zhu in any museum anywhere in the world. You can't see them.
Yes.
I was lucky enough to photograph 2 of these 48, but they're not for public. You can't. A normal person is not going to be able to see them. There are museums in China. There's 2 mineral museums near Huangzhou where they have giant Yiming Zhu that are like 5.5 feet in diameter, 4.5 feet, one's 4.5 feet, one's 5 feet. Massive.
Yeah, I saw the picture.
And I went last year to take a closer look at these, and because that region of China is very famous for its fluorite mines. So you find a lot of Yiming Zhu that are made of fluorite, but you find like the Hope Diamond that the Queen of England has.
Yeah. That's
a Yiming Zhu. That glows in the dark. Most of the legendary diamonds through history are Yiming Zhu. They glow in the dark. They have the rare earth phosphors. So it's not just fluorite that makes Yiming Zhu. But those Yiming Zhu in China, there's one in Wuyi at a fluorite museum that had been. They took a fluorite sphere and they coated it with a phosphorescent paint, and then put a clear lacquer, a clear coat over that to try to give it a depth of field. But if you authentic Yiming Zhu, authentic imperial, when you hit it with a UV light, there'll be a subsurface scaling pattern that is unmistakable. It looks like a field of wheat or grains of rice laid end to end. It's a very unique scaling pattern that is revealed under ultraviolet light. So I
wonder what would happen.
And I kind of hopped over the little barrier, and I had my light taking a close look, and I busted their chops when I informed them that I knew that what they had was fake. But there was a big draw. They're using it as a big draw. They were selling. That was fake, and then their gift shop they were selling small.
Peter. This has been so. It's been so fascinating. But the thing is that we've run out of time. We got to do part 2. This is just. It's almost the show's almost over. I hadn't been keeping up with the time, and the computer says your show is 90 seconds. So I'd like to.
I'm sorry, I'm so long-winded, and thank you for having me as a guest. Your first guest.
It says 60 seconds, but we'll talk, and we're going to do part 2 because we just cracked the surface. It'll probably have to be. Let's see. I'll get with you and let you know, because I may be doing some traveling.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for being on there for our first guest. And people, this is fascinating. I apologize to you too, because we didn't get a chance to talk to anybody else. But this subject is something that we really need to go into. If you're interested in the Yiming Zhu, you can get me on my email. Just email me, and we'll work through it. That's kilindi@hotmail.com. That's KILINDI @hotmail.com. And also, if you like the show and you'd like to contribute to it continuing, you can get me on PayPal for a donation from 10 to 10,000 or 100,000 or a million, whichever way you want to do it. But 10 is fine, at kilindi@hotmail.com. That's my PayPal address. So thank you all for coming in on the show. I really appreciate it. And let's thank and give a big hand to Peter for coming on, and we're going to do part 2. Thank you very much.
All right.
The Entheogenic Explorer show is signing off. And we'll be talking soon, brother. Peace.
All right. Thanks, bro. Peace.
Thank you.